At midnight, a billionaire's new bride pointed at a black woman standing quietly inside the mansion and said, "You don't belong here anymore. Get out." The woman didn't argue. She walked into the cold night carrying only one small bag. But the bride didn't know one thing. That woman had spent 12 years protecting the billionaire's family, caring for his dying mother, and keeping a secret that could destroy everything. The next morning, a lawyer arrived at the mansion. He wasn't there to defend the bride. He was there to hand the keys to the woman she had thrown out. And when he said, "Madam, this house now belongs to you," everyone inside froze. Rain covered the enormous mansion as Maya stood silently near the entrance. She was a 29-year-old black woman who had worked for the family for 12 years. She wasn't wealthy, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. That night, billionaire Daniel Carter had just married Victoria, a beautiful woman from an influential family. Maya smiled politely when Victoria entered. She had no idea her life was about to change forever. Victoria had dreamed about marrying Daniel since the first time she saw his photograph in a business magazine. His wealth, mansion, private jets, and international companies represented everything she wanted. During the wedding, she smiled perfectly for cameras. But behind that smile was one condition she had already made clear. After marriage, she wanted complete control over the mansion and everyone inside it. Maya lived in a small room behind the mansion's garden. She never complained about her simple life. She had watched Daniel's mother, Eleanor, struggle with illness years earlier. Maya had cared for her when nurses were unavailable, stayed beside her during frightening nights, and read books to her when she could no longer sleep. Eleanor had always called Maya family, even though Maya never expected anything in return. The morning after the wedding, Victoria walked through the mansion inspecting everything. She noticed Maya arranging flowers in the dining room. Victoria stopped and looked at her from head to toe. "Who told you to touch those?" she asked coldly. Maya calmly explained that Eleanor had always loved fresh flowers there. Victoria smiled without warmth. "My husband's mother isn't here anymore. Things are changing." Daniel heard the conversation from the hallway. Maya expected him to say something, but he didn't. He was exhausted from the wedding and overwhelmed by the pressure of his new marriage. Victoria had already warned him that Maya was too comfortable around his family. Daniel simply told Maya, "Let's keep things peaceful." Maya lowered her eyes and nodded. She didn't know that his silence would become one of his greatest regrets. That afternoon, Victoria entered Daniel's private study and discovered an old photograph. It showed Eleanor sitting in a hospital bed with Maya beside her, holding her hand. On the back, Eleanor had written, "My daughter of the heart." Victoria became furious. She couldn't understand why a household worker appeared in so many important family memories. Instead of asking questions, she decided Maya needed to disappear. That evening, Victoria confronted Daniel. "If we're going to build a life together, she cannot stay here," she said. Daniel looked surprised. Maya had been part of his family long before Victoria arrived. But Victoria insisted that Maya made her uncomfortable. She threatened to leave the marriage if Daniel didn't choose. Daniel promised to speak with Maya. He never imagined Victoria would act before he could. Near midnight, Maya was cleaning the downstairs hallway when Victoria appeared with 2 security guards. "Pack your things," Victoria ordered. Maya froze. "Tonight?" she asked. Victoria nodded. "You heard me." Maya looked toward Daniel's study, hoping he would come out. He didn't. Her eyes filled with tears, but she refused to beg. She quietly walked to her room and packed the few belongings she owned. Before leaving, Maya stopped in front of Eleanor's old portrait. She touched the frame gently. "I'm sorry," she whispered. She had promised Eleanor she would protect Daniel's family, but she had never imagined protection would require walking away. She left through the mansion's side door carrying 1 suitcase. Rain soaked her clothes within seconds. Behind her, the mansion's golden lights remained bright, but she felt completely alone. Maya walked until she reached a small neighborhood where her friend Samuel owned a modest cafe. He was shocked to see her standing outside in the rain. Without asking questions, he opened the door and gave her a towel. Maya finally broke down. She wasn't crying because she had lost a job. She was crying because she had spent 12 years believing she was part of a family that had suddenly rejected her. The next morning, Maya woke on a small sofa inside Samuel's apartment. An unfamiliar black car stopped outside. A distinguished older man stepped out carrying a leather briefcase. He introduced himself as Jonathan Reed, the Carter family's attorney. Maya immediately became nervous. "If Daniel wants me back, tell him I don't want trouble," she said. Jonathan shook his head. "I'm not here because Daniel sent me." Jonathan placed a sealed envelope on the table. "Your name is inside this," he said. Maya stared at him. He explained that Eleanor had prepared legal documents before her death. They had been sealed for years under strict instructions. The documents could only be opened after Daniel married. Maya couldn't understand why. Jonathan slowly looked into her eyes and said, "Mrs. Carter wanted you protected from something she knew would happen." Inside the envelope was a letter written by Eleanor. She explained that Maya's mother had once saved her life during a dangerous accident. Years later, when Maya's mother became ill, Eleanor promised to care for Maya. But the relationship became much deeper. Eleanor considered Maya her daughter. Before dying, Eleanor transferred a controlling interest in the Carter family estate into a protected trust under Maya's name. Jonathan explained that the mansion itself was included in the trust. Daniel had lived there, but legally he had never owned the property outright. Eleanor had created the arrangement because she knew Daniel could become vulnerable to people who valued his money more than his heart. Maya stared at the documents in disbelief. She didn't want the mansion. She only wanted the dignity everyone had taken from her. There was one final condition in Eleanor's letter. Maya would become the legal owner only after Daniel married and the marriage certificate was officially registered. Eleanor had feared that someone might enter the family purely for wealth. Maya suddenly understood everything. Eleanor hadn't been predicting Victoria specifically. She had simply known that Daniel needed protection from anyone who saw his fortune before seeing him. Jonathan expected Maya to celebrate. Instead, she quietly asked, "Can I refuse it?" He nodded. Maya looked down at Eleanor's letter. "I don't want revenge." Jonathan smiled sadly. "Your mother figure didn't leave this to you so you could punish anyone. She left it because she trusted your character." Maya finally accepted the documents. Not because she wanted power, but because she wanted to honor Eleanor's final wish. Meanwhile, Victoria was celebrating with friends inside the mansion. She believed Maya was gone forever. She ordered staff to remove Maya's belongings and redesign the guest rooms. Daniel watched quietly, increasingly uncomfortable. Something about the previous night kept bothering him. He remembered Maya's face when she left. For the first time, he wondered whether protecting his marriage had cost him the loyalty of the one person who had always protected him. At 8:10 in the morning, Jonathan's car arrived at the mansion. Victoria smiled, assuming he had come for routine family business. Daniel opened the door. Jonathan handed him a folder. "Mr. Carter, congratulations on your marriage. Unfortunately, we need to discuss ownership of this property." Daniel's face changed. Victoria stepped forward. "What do you mean?" Jonathan calmly replied, "The mansion now belongs to Maya Thompson." The room became silent. Victoria laughed nervously. "That's impossible." Jonathan opened the legal documents and explained the trust. Daniel read every page with trembling hands. His mother's signature appeared at the bottom. He remembered her final weeks and how often she had asked him to treat Maya like family. He finally understood why. Victoria's face turned pale as she realized the woman she had thrown outside now legally controlled the home. An hour later, Maya returned to the mansion. This time, she didn't enter through the servant's entrance. She walked through the front doors with Jonathan beside her. Victoria stared at her. Maya wore a simple cream-colored dress and carried Eleanor's old letter. Nobody spoke. Maya looked around the mansion and remembered 12 years of memories. She wasn't smiling because she had won. She was smiling because Eleanor's trust had survived. Daniel approached Maya slowly. His voice broke when he said, "I'm sorry." Maya looked at him for several seconds. "You should have protected me," she replied. Daniel lowered his head. He admitted that fear had made him weak. He had been so desperate to keep his marriage peaceful that he ignored the person who had always stood beside his family. Maya didn't immediately forgive him. Some wounds needed time. Victoria refused to accept what had happened. She accused Maya of manipulating Eleanor and stealing the family fortune. Maya didn't respond angrily. Jonathan produced medical records, financial documents, letters, and years of evidence proving Eleanor's decision was completely voluntary. Victoria finally realized that she had not lost the mansion because of Maya. She had lost it because her own behavior revealed exactly why Eleanor had created the trust. Daniel later discovered something even more painful. Maya had never told anyone how much she had sacrificed for his family. She had turned down opportunities, worked through difficult nights, and stayed beside Eleanor when other people were too busy. She had even anonymously paid some of Daniel's medical bills years earlier when he was struggling after an accident. Maya had never mentioned any of it because she never wanted gratitude. Everyone expected Maya to throw Victoria out immediately. Instead, she said, "She can leave with dignity." Victoria looked shocked. Maya explained that Eleanor had taught her something important. Wealth should never become an excuse to humiliate another human being. Maya could have used her new power to destroy Victoria publicly. Instead, she chose to walk away from revenge. Over the following weeks, Maya transformed the mansion. She created rooms for struggling families who needed temporary shelter. She opened a scholarship foundation in Eleanor's name. She turned one unused wing into a community center. Daniel watched everything quietly. The mansion, once a symbol of luxury, slowly became a place where ordinary people could find help. Maya finally understood why Eleanor had trusted her with it. Daniel's marriage to Victoria ended shortly afterward. But Maya never celebrated her downfall. She told Daniel that money had made him surrounded by people, but it had not taught him how to recognize loyalty. Daniel accepted responsibility. He began working directly with Maya's foundation. For the first time in years, he spent his fortune helping people without expecting publicity, praise, or business advantages in return. Maya placed Eleanor's final letter inside a glass frame in the mansion's main hallway. Beneath it, she added a simple sentence: "A person's worth is never determined by the room they are allowed to enter." Every visitor who walked through the mansion saw those words. Maya wanted everyone to remember what happened, not as a story about revenge, but as a lesson about dignity. Months later, Maya stood in the same doorway where she had once been thrown outside carrying one suitcase. This time, hundreds of people were entering the mansion for the opening of the Eleanor Carter Foundation. Maya looked at the rain falling outside and remembered that painful night. She realized something unexpected. Losing that home for one night had helped her discover that she had never truly lost her place. Daniel stood beside her and asked, "Do you think my mother would be proud?" Maya smiled through tears. She already knew who you could become. Daniel looked at the foundation around them. "And you?" Maya answered, "I don't want to be remembered as the woman who became rich. I want to be remembered as the woman who stayed kind when she finally had the power to become cruel." Years later, people still told the story of the black woman who was thrown out of a billionaire's mansion and returned the next morning as its owner. But Maya never described it that way. She always said the mansion wasn't her greatest inheritance. Eleanor's trust was. Because money could buy houses, companies, cars, and influence, but it could never buy character. Maya had received something far more valuable: the chance to prove that kindness can survive even after betrayal. Moral of the story: never judge a person's worth by their clothes, job, background, or social position. Maya was treated like she was invisible because she didn't look powerful. Yet when she finally received power, she chose compassion instead of revenge. True wealth is not owning a mansion. True wealth is having enough character to remain kind when you finally have the power to hurt the people who hurt you. Eleanor understood that before everyone else did. A person's character is the greatest inheritance they can leave behind.